Hello, everyone, and welcome to Ful-on, your Fulham-centric football podcast. I'm your host, Ash Woolford. Joining me for this Villa review are both the Jacks. AJ, how you doing, mate?
That's about it.
Mozza, how you doing, mate?
Trying to keep the faith, my friend, somehow.
Yeah, somehow. Well, obviously, we're here to do a quick review of the Villa game on Sunday. I also want to just have a quick word at the end about the Fulham Women's team, who obviously won their league on Sunday. But let's get the first bit over and done with because that's slightly more somber. Villa away on Saturday was overly frustrating. It was good for us. We had our first ever full-on meet up. All four of us were there at the game on Sunday, including Drew, who's obviously not with us right now. It was really nice to see you all. It was nice to meet up finally in person. AJ, I know we've been speaking for a long time, but it's the first time we've ever actually met in person, which is great. It's just a shame the football was absolutely dog shit. But you know that's typical. I think we called that last week that the football would be absolutely rubbish. Let's look at the actual game itself. AJ, I asked you this question because I always do, and I asked you in the pre-game. Were you surprised by the starting lineup that played? Were you surprised by the way that Marco approached this game, considering that obviously we were very much aware of how talented this Villa team were?
I mean, the lineup was to be expected. The positioning of all of the players was a little bit off for me. I probably would have had Cess left, Wilson right, Iwobi tucked into the eight, but instead it was more like a 4-2-3-1 with Wilson through the middle and Cess out on the right. Didn't quite understand that unless it was to try and give support to Kenny Tete, which, to be fair, he definitely needed based on the first half of football. Um, Otherwise, I think the formation and I think the players picked themselves in that regard. Obviously, we will sit here and continuously push for seeing some youth in and around the squads, but fuck it, what do we know, eh?
Yeah. Look, Saturday was typical Fulham performance. Really, we've been calling it for months and months that it's really easy to play Fulham and win. All you need to do is score early and then let us have the ball, and that's exactly what Villa did. The goal they scored on Saturday, so frustrating for us to concede because I think all of us saw it coming. It was one of those ones that as soon as they got the corner, you knew what was going to happen. Tillemans is completely unmarked. Leno popped on wrists. It's not great. Yet again, we can see the goal that we can foreshadow coming because of, poor defending. It's just really frustrating. We spoke at half time and obviously during the game about the frustrations of playing Fulham and we all know how to beat us, as we say. But we just didn't offer anything on Saturday. And I think what's most frustrating about the fact we didn't offer anything on Saturday is I don't think Villa were that great either. I just think that they managed to score their goal and then just let us do nothing for the rest of the game.
Yeah, as you say, I think we all knew the goal was coming. Even before we got to the stadium, I think we all knew that they would be the ones to score first. And on review of the whole game, we were kind of lucky it wasn't more than that. Can sort of go both ways a little bit, but I think Villa were the better side. I think AJ even said at half time as well, or sorry, not half time, even at the end of the game, that we'd had, 42 majority possession and Villa had 48. That sounded about right. That Villa just knew what to do and stood off us. But they weren't exceptional. They weren't.
Didn't need to be.
Didn't need to be, no. But so in a way, they did know what they were doing. Credit to them, credit to Unai Emery. But just frustrating in our preview show. We weren't expecting to win. We weren't expecting a point even. But we said we want to see some fight. We want to see, you like some want, and there was just nothing. It was just a load of flap, wasn't it? Like from where we were sitting or standing as well in the away ends, we had a good view of the goal line, the defence line. When they scored as well, I was lining up like our defence. No one was like just doing the man marking. I've watched it back as well. I still don't know who was meant to be on Tielemans. Was it meant to be Anderson or Berge? I see Berge as well, even like sort of ducks his way out of the ball as it goes over his head. Maybe that was just him trying to get out the way of scoring a fluky own goal. But yeah, I don't know. Just there was a lack of passion. It was the one thing we didn't want, and that is what we got. So yeah. There's an awful lot more to say, I suppose, but I will continue later. But I won't ramble anymore now on that first question.
No, it's really frustrating. I think that, I said it multiple times in the preview show. I wasn't expecting anything from the game. I wasn't expecting a result from the game, but I wanted to see some fight, and I wanted to see some balls, basically, by the team, and it just seemed so lackluster yet again. That the subs we made yet again were very much like for like. There was nothing special with the subs we made. If anything, they were baffling, the subs that we did make, because you got Iwobi sauntering around on the pitch looking like he'd run 6 marathons before the game had even started. He stays on, but he takes off Cess, who was arguably our most creative player at the time, and made very little sense to take him off. I know he was on a yellow card, but that's not a reason to take him off. It wasn't.
Went down to 10 minutes anyway.
It's really wasn't. And yes, he sort of unlucky with the goal that he scored. That was chalked off because of the handball. But that was it. That was the one bright spot in the whole game. We didn't really offer much more other than that, which is frustrating. You look at the rest of the substitutions that were made. Smith Rowe came on, offered fucking nothing. Willian came on, very much 36-year-old Willian now, isn't he? Like, he's basically there with his Zimmer frame and his slippers on the wing, offering absolutely nothing. You got, Traore came on. I thought Traore is good. I'll give him that. I thought Traore was at least attempting to play football. It's just a shame that his head and his feet aren't connected. And then Harrison Reed came on, and sadly then went off 5 minutes later injured. And I probably assuming AJ that's probably the last we'll ever see of Harrison Reed playing for Fulham. Sadly, because it looked like it was a pretty serious injury, and I just don't think he's offered much there. I don't know if you agree with my summary of those substitutions, but again, frustrating as hell watching Fulham make subs that do absolutely nothing in a game.
Yep. You can't really argue that in any sense of your questioning. I understand the rationale between substituting Sessegnon, not that I would ever agree with it. He's a very heart on your sleeve player, and he's very direct and very aggressive, which I think actually goes against Marco's philosophy potentially, which is why we saw the substitution at the risk of a red card. The irony of that is it came to bite Marco back in the arse again anyway, when Reed ended up injured again and we went down to 10 men anyway. Prior to Sessegnon's substitution, I turned to Mozza in the stadium and went, this is either going to end up 1-1 or 2-0, because there was clear momentum and it was actually turning into a game of basically end-to-end football, which is kind of what we needed in that moment. But I think Marco saw it, shat himself, and just sort of went, no, we need to change it and regain control of the game and go back to his sort of tactics and philosophy. And as much as I love Marco and everything he's done for the club and everything he's going to potentially do for the club, he's too stubborn in that regards. Sometimes you need that pace injection. Sometimes you need that injection into the game and you just have to ride the storm at the back. It's just how you have to play football sometimes. We're not Man City. We're not going to be able to dominate the ball for 90% of the game and create 16 chances. We're lucky if we create one when we dominate that much of the ball. We need that space in behind the defence. Not that we have many players that can exploit that space in behind, but we still need it. It's what we need to score goals. And I'd be interested to work out the numbers on how many goals we've actually scored from counter-attacks as opposed to a clean connection of possession.
Yeah, do you know what? For me, Saturday was summed up by the additional time at the end of the game, right? Because 8 minutes added on, Villa somehow managed to take 3 minutes to take 3 goal kicks, and no extra minutes were added on. Whatever, that's gamesmanship. That's how the game works. But there's 2 minutes left of a game. You're 1-0 down. And rather than passing the ball forward, you have your two centre backs just passing the ball to each other on the halfway line. Like, there was no urgency from us at all. And it is one of those things where, Mozza, I know you were quite angry about this at the time because I was stood next to you and I could hear you. But, it's like they're just nonchalant to the idea that, we could get something from the game if we actually just put the ball in the box. It was really frustrating that, you're chasing a game and yet still no one goes, you know what, we got nothing to lose here. And you thinking that Villa had just hit the bar as well, that you would realise that, you know what, if Anderson suddenly stops becoming a centre-back and we just throw him up top and then just lob the ball into him, try and get somebody who can win a header, just anything that might fall in. Because there's no difference. At this time of the season, losing 1-0 or losing 2-0 makes no difference. But losing 1-0 or drawing would have been a massive thing for us. That point's massive if you look at Europe. So to not even roll the dice there, and I understand that we're down to 10 men because Harrison Reed's gone off injured, and the players are tired because of Marco's small squad structure and the way that we play. But you've got to at least throw the dice a little bit. Like, it's literally the equivalent of walking into Vegas, like going to Vegas and just handing someone $100 rather than playing at the table, because you're not even attempting to make the gamble. You're just going, oh well, we've lost, so might as well just take that, because like it's super frustrating watching that. Mozza, how do you sum up just how gutless it felt? Because it felt really, that second half just felt completely like we had nothing. And I don't even know what to blame it on anymore. Do we blame? I don't want to blame Marco too much, but we have to, because ultimately he's in charge, right? But why are we so reluctant sometimes just to, show a little bit of backbone and, go for it?
$1 million question, that, isn't it? Well, a few points about everything there. So when I speak on here, I'm not the most technically minded, as you know, or as anyone who follows us knows, in terms of football. I'm better like in the moment at the game, as you probably witnessed, like you said, rather than doing a post analysis like now. So what I say is what I see from a emotional side of things, and I wear my heart on my sleeve. When you say how do you sum that second half up, the way I would sum the whole game up is the look that Ryan Sessegnon had when he was subbed off. So we've said he was our most creative player, the best player that we had on the pitch. He looked pissed off, and rightly so, when he got subbed, and he walked right past us to go back down the tunnel when that happens. And he had the same look on his face that he did when he was accidentally subbed off in that Bournemouth game. I'm not going to try and read into that too much. I don't know if there's trouble in paradise, as it were, and what goes on behind closed doors. I'd like to think not. I think Marco is probably quite well respected in the camp, and I'm not suggesting otherwise for 1 second. But obviously, there's always going to be tension if you don't agree with your boss's decisions about things. But I think Sessegnon was well within his right if he was pissed off about coming off there, because every Fulham fan should have been. The subs made no sense. Like, I don't know if you mentioned as well, and tell me if I daydream this, because I still can't quite believe it, the change of Castagnet coming on for Tete. You're 1-0 down. Why are we making a defensive change? I know it's been said, right, Cess had a yellow card. Did Tete had a yellow card as well, maybe?
He did, yeah, he did.
Right. So
no, he did. Yeah, he
if
did.
that's the justification, still a little bit weird making a defensive change, regardless what position you're changing there. Marco's stubborn, and he's too stubborn for his own good. And he still had the nerve at the end of the game, the post-match interview, right, to say, we've still got finals left, and he's been saying this for the last couple of games. So this game, Villa, should have been a final as well. Now, if you are treating it as a final, the way I see it, regardless, you're not worrying about the next game. The next game don't matter. If your player has got a yellow card, I'm talking about Sessegnon, like, as the main example here, I don't give a shit if he gets a second yellow and gets a red card. If he gets red carded, but we still get something out of the game, to me, that is a cup final mentality. So it's just we keep using the word consistent or consistently inconsistent about Fulham. I mean, that says it all really there, because I can't make head or tail of it, lads. And I don't know if I'm just over analysing it, being over emotional about it, but it just doesn't add up. I've seen people on Twitter and that going, "Oh yeah, Silver out, that he's done his bit now. We can't move forward." They're having give your head a wobble, as they say. Like, don't be stupid. If you've got a brain in your head, you don't want Silver out. That is the worst possible thing for us. But yes, Silver is accountable. He is responsible for the decisions made in that game. Yeah, I don't know if you boys can make head or tail of it, because I really can't. I'm struggling, but it doesn't make me go, right, Silver out.
No, for me, right, you take players off who are on a yellow card when you are being so intense in the style of play that you have that you know for sure someone's going to get a second yellow card. We were passing the ball around like we were 3-0 up, and we had nothing to worry about. So there was no intensity from Fulham on Saturday. There was no there was no someone so close to a second yellow that they were going to get sent off. Barring maybe Sander Berg after he got yellow carded, because he has to put tackles in, right? That's the only sub that he made because someone was on a yellow card that makes any sense is the Sander Berg substitution, right? Because of the amount of tackles he has to put in. But there's no intensity from anybody else to need to come off. Tete coming off. Yes, I know he's coming back from injury, and that might explain why. But fuck that, Marco. You're chasing the game of football. And yes, I know that Carlos Vinicius is the only attacking player you have on your bench who you might be able to bring off. Well, bring on, sorry. Maybe that's the argument that we've all had for the last 3.5 months about putting some of the youngsters on the bloody bench who might give you a little bit more going forward. This is where I get frustrated at Marco, especially. I almost didn't want to listen to what he had to say after the game on Saturday, because I was waiting for him to recycle the same garbage he recycles every single week when he does it. And I know what it is. It's certain managers do it because they leave those conversations to happen behind closed doors. They don't want to have that conversation with the media and what's going outside, because it can paint a picture of what's not actually going on. And I get it. And I understand what Marco's like with that. He's quite private with stuff like that. It's the same reason why we don't find out about players' injuries. We don't find out about stuff like that until you see a team sheet, and that is what that is. But the buck does stop with him. And I understand people's frustrations with Marco Silva and going like, I've had enough of it. Maybe he's taking his squad as far as he can. But for me, that's not me going, when I say that, it's not me saying maybe somebody else needs to come in and take the squad further. That's me saying he needs a better squad.
Yeah.
Because it's clear that, an awful lot of players are passengers at certain parts of the season. And we know with Marco's small squad want. He doesn't want a big squad. He likes having a tight knit unit that he can keep together. He can keep motivated. He can keep pushing for stuff. But it's clear that there are certain players in the team that have become slightly passenger-esque because they just don't have the legs, And again, it's not blaming them. Look at Alex Iwobi, who arguably up until December was our best player. He's been dead since December. He just needs like 3 weeks off, and he might come
Victim
back
of his own
slightly
success.
rejuvenated.
I
Like
would argue.
he might.
Sorry,
Go on.
I would argue though, like with Woe, I think it's shown like how quality he can be. So it's like from one extreme to the other, and he got an awful lot of stick at the game on the weekend. And I feel like you'll both disagree with me, but I don't feel like he put in the worst shift ever.
No, he didn't. No, he didn't. He didn't.
But I get what you're saying. He looks fatigued.
He looks fatigued, and that's the case when 34-year-old Raul is doing more covering coming back than he is because he hasn't got the legs to do the running back, right? So like that happened 3 times during the first half, right? Where Raul was literally 20 yards behind him in the pitch, but running past him to come back and cover for him because he didn't have the legs to keep up with play. That's where it gets frustrating. And this isn't a comment on Iwobi because I love Alex Iwobi, right? I think he's a great footballer, but he's there. He needs a break. He just needs, and he's needed it for so long, and it's been so clear for so long. And this is where the argument people have about Marco having clear favourites in the squad and players he doesn't want to drop and he doesn't want to lose. And maybe that's because he really, really trusts those players, and I can understand that. But for the betterment of the squad, if he'd missed 3 games 2 months ago, how much better off would we be right now than than the performances that we're getting? Because he just looks like he needs a holiday. And now we're in the position where it's like, well, ultimately, we could have thrown Europe away on Saturday. No, I don't think we have, by the way. I think there's still a chance, but it's a bloody slim one with the way the results went. We could have thrown our chances away because of the fact he's happened to play players that he hasn't given a break in so long. You look at Anthony Robinson. Anthony Robinson's been playing he's playing injured. He also still looks like he needs a break. Because he just doesn't have the legs, like the intensity that we know we need that he had at the beginning of the season has completely dropped off and gone. There is a little bit of that, and it's frustrating, and we go into game 3 cup finals left as we keep saying. Well, if we're going to keep shit in the bed in cup finals that we are, I'm slightly glad that we've lost the last couple of semi-finals and quarterfinals that we've actually played in because it's not great. And this is where my only criticism of Marco is that as much as I love him and I love his style of play and I love the way that he does things, he hasn't shown me he has the ability to make us that much of a winning set of players at the moment, because the mentality in big games like this just seems to completely go out the window. I don't know if you two have anything to add to that or any counter argument to it, but
Stop calling them cup finals, because either we're terrifically shit at cup finals or we need to be realistic and call these league games, because something needs to change in our mentality of them, because we're either not actually treating them like cup finals or we're just very shit at cup finals and need to get rid of that mentality. Because ever since we're like, oh yeah, we've got 6 cup finals to go, we've got 5 cup finals to go, we've got 4 cup finals to go, every single one has been dog shit. Like, even the game we won against Southampton was awful.
Yes.
The consistently inconsistent thing also went out the window, because we are now consistent. We are consistently shit. It's like there's not a question mark around it anymore. It's our form from the beginning of the season has fallen off of a cliff. And I think it's a combination of Marco's tactics being found out a little bit and people knowing how to beat us now, and the players that we had to unlock games with a little bit of vigor and good form and a little bit of fortune are all knackered.
Mm-hmm.
Iwobi is a victim of his own success. Every single Fulham fan, when we purchased Iwobi, said he will not be a starter in our midfield. He will not be a starter for us out wide. He's someone to strengthen the squad depth. A season later, he's played almost every single Premier League fixture because he was really good for the first 5, 10, 15 games. Anthony Robinson, tremendous footballer, don't really have any cover for him, so he's been burnt out and overplayed. Cess isn't a left back. I appreciate that. But we've won games this season giving Anthony Robinson a break against certain sides and actually throwing Sessegnon in the deep end at that left back role. Not that I want to see it. I don't. But Sess at left back, King coming in, Godot coming in maybe, or Williams starting with Godot coming on the 60th minute or something along those lines to re-energize and actually resting some of these players will stop things like Harrison Reed still nursing an injury, coming on the field and looking like he's going to end his career because of another drastic injury. We've got players that are available to do this. And I'm tired of hearing, oh, Marco hasn't got the assets, he hasn't got the squad that he needs. No, we've got very reliable, strong, young talent that's eager to play there or thereabouts, even if it's just for the bench to add to squad depth and to give them a chance when things aren't working for us. But the fact of the matter is that hasn't happened, and that's on Marco's back, not on our recruitment or our structure or what players we do and don't have available or the fitness of overworked players. Because at the end of the day, the person picking the 23-man squad or however many it is Marco Silva. And he's liable for choosing Vinicius on the bench. And if you're going to have Vinicius on the bench, bring him on and keep Raul on and change something up a bit. Don't be so tactically inept in the sense of you're doing everything the same way all the time. We appreciate that's your bread and butter, that's your tactics, but you can't win everything with one tactic. Even the world's greatest tacticians have to change their tactic from time to time to win games. It's just what it is. And I think that's what stops Marco being as good as Emery, as good as Pep Guardiola, as good as some of the other top managers in the league.
Yeah, I agree, actually. I fully agree. I think it's the reason why Marco Silva's at Fulham still now. And it's because of like shortcomings here. For me, I read a really disturbing fact this week that if you take Ryan Sessegnon out of the equation, Fulham are given the least amount of minutes to the academy graduates than any other team in the league, and it's by a good like couple of hundred hours. It's like minutes. Sorry, it's really worrying that's the case. I know that maybe the last couple of weeks they've looked at the under 23s and gone, they've got their end of season playoffs, and maybe that they'll be best off staying within that setup to try and win their league. Well, good news to everyone. Fulham are Fulham, and they fucked it up on Monday and they lost and they're out now anyway. I don't want to see Carlos Vinicius in a Fulham team on Saturday. I want to see Callum Osmond in that squad. I want to see some of these young players that we know have got great talents that should be looking at getting Premier League minutes, actually potentially getting some Premier League minutes. I want to see Osmond getting some time up. I want to see Lamar Gordon getting called up into the squad. I want to see King. I want to see Godot. I want to see these players, at least getting called up to the squad because they are young and they are energetic. And yes, they may only get the last 10 minutes of a game, the last 5 minutes of a game. But you know what? If we're 1-0 down and they come on, they're not gonna just sit there because they won't have the ability just to sit there and go, let's just we're 1-0 down, lads. We're in injury time, but let's still fuck around with it at the back because that's what we did on Saturday, and it showed no urgency and no tendency. And the fact that Anderson did it within arm's reach of the away fans says an awful lot about the mentality of the squad and what they were doing, and it's super frustrating. But lads, we're not going to pick a man of the match from Saturday because there wasn't one. Like Fulham fans were a man of the match on Saturday because I thought like Rail worked his socks off. I'll give him that. but I don't really want to pick one.
No.
Before we finish this, I do want to finish this on a positive note, though, and I want to just give the Fulham women's team a shout out. For those who do like follow the show, we do occasionally talk about them, not as much as other shows do. If you want to keep up on with them, listen to Cottage Talk and stuff like that. The guys at That's So Craven follow the women's team massively. They are massively helped also by the fact they have an ex Fulham team captain who is on their podcast. They follow them closely. They won the league on Sunday. An impressive season they've had this year. And considering that they had a bit of a heartbreak the week before where they had to concede the cup final after finding out they'd accidentally played a player allegedly who was ineligible to play in the cup earlier on in the rounds, they've done fantastic. They've lost one game all season. They've lost one football match all season, and it was against a team that have just been promoted to the WSL in the FA Cup fourth round. Steve J has done an absolutely fantastic job there, and there's one thing you can say: the recruitment for the women's team has been fantastic. They won 6-0 on Sunday. Sorry, for anyone who didn't know, and were crowned champions. Which is great. They've moved up another tier. It's good that the women's team, who Fulham have a great history, obviously, we should be one of those teams that have a WSL women's team. The fact that we don't is merely because we got Fulham's ownership got really frustrated that the FA weren't putting any money in women's football, and they felt like they were doing it alone, disbanded the team, and then 2 years later there was a massive revolution in women's football. So it's one of those things that is frustrating and we're not there, but they're working hard to get back. And every time I've seen them play, I've always been really impressed with the style of football they play. They play really good football, and they'll move up. And hopefully next year, they can get promoted again, and they can really start pushing to get that squad where it should be, which is back in at least the championship of women's football, getting there before potentially it could be close shopped, which we don't want. So congratulations to sort of all of the people that have worked with that women's team, because
fucking well done, Fulham.
W to the women's team.
It is fantastic stuff for them. So congratulations to them. Other than that, there's not much more for us to add, really. We'll be back on Friday with our preview for the Everton game on Saturday. It's going to be a tough one. It's going to be hard to talk about. But we'll come and talk to that. Other than that, thank you to everyone who's come and followed us on YouTube. We've had quite a few new followers over the last couple of weeks, subscribers to the show, which is fantastic. We are still doing the giveaway once we get the 500 subscribers. So if you aren't subscribed, come over, subscribe, like and share the channel, help us grow. Other than that, have a good week. Hopefully Fulham can sort it out on Saturday and we can get back on track. Other than that, nothing more to say other than come on your ways.